wanted to discuss something that happened a while back. It seems that everywhere that you go down here in the South, if there's a public television on, it seems to be some sort of hidden conspiracy to keep Fox News playing at all times on these televisions. But it's not as bad now as it was, I guess, about 3 years ago. But one time kind of stood out in particular. I went into an oral surgeon to get my wisdom tooth pulled. And while we were waiting, of course, they had two televisions just blaring Fox News. And it was very, very stressful because that's what they make their living, selling to their viewer base. Anyway, I've got nerve issues anyway, because half the time my entire body's on fire with what feels like red ants and stuff like that, and having somebody screaming at me through television about Obama's plan to destroy the world and all the evil liberals and all this stuff, it just really was getting on my last nerve. So my wife went and asked the receptionist if we could change the channel to something that wasn't as stressful. And so the lady gave her the remote, and she switched the channel to some show. It was Robin Williams' movie. I don't know. I'd never seen it before. It was him up in a treehouse with a bunch of kids telling fart jokes and stuff. And, you know, it was pretty laid back. It was kind of funny, cute little show, something. Anything other than gloom and doom, death, destruction, and evil liberal conspiracy to kill grandma and all this stuff. So, anyway, things are going fine, and then one of the other receptionists comes out and sees that the TV has changed off of Fox News, and she proceeds to go batshit crazy over it, running around, straightening up magazines in the lobby and grabbing up the remote and switching it directly back onto Fox News. And we were like, well, you know, we had changed that because, you know, it was too stressful. And she said, well, sometimes we leave the remote out here because we have service members, soldiers that come through, and we want to let them watch stuff that they want to watch. And we're like, okay, well, why can't we watch what we're watching? And she's like, well, these other channels may have stuff that's offensive to young children, and we don't want to subject young children to things they shouldn't be seeing. So we were like, okay, well, there's nothing offensive with this. Well, she changes the channel, goes back in the reception area, closes the door, and it's all in a huff and puff because all this horrible stuff. How dare they let somebody change the channel away from Fox News? And I thought it was interesting that, I mean, there are multiple businesses in my area that refuse to switch the TV off of Fox News to anything else, even another news station or the Weather Channel. There's one guy who runs a barbecue place around here that basically has a policy of, if you don't want to watch Fox News, you can get the hell out of his business. So, you know, that's pretty shitty. But anyway, back to what was going on at the oral surgeons. We had to sit there for the rest of the time with Fox News playing, and it was interesting that my wife and I were talking about it, because we went from being able to see Robin Williams, you know, palling around with a bunch of kids making silly jokes and laughing, having fun. And the most offensive thing out of the whole thing was a fart joke. And then they switched it over to Fox News, which had, you know, roadside IEDs blowing up, military patrol units, dead children, burning bodies, Afghani villagers set on fire, people shooting at insurgents or whatever with high-powered sniper rifles. And then, of course, the news commentators on Fox chiming in every 5 minutes with Obama's going to ruin this country and kill grandma and make everything horrible forever. And I was thinking, if, say I was a young, impressionable 6-year-old child, what would scar my brain worse? Robin Williams hanging out with a bunch of kids, having fun, or death, destruction, mayhem, and the threat that your president is going to kill your grandma and make your life horrible and destroy your country? It's kind of interesting how our culture has been so polarized and brainwashed to the point where you can show dead bodies, like real dead bodies, on television. Like, oh, here's this 12-year-old boy that got blown in half by a drone strike. Or, this grandmother weeping over her son who, was shot dead in a firefight in the middle of Afghanistan. That's perfectly fine. But if, somebody says poo-poo, or you see like somebody's naked ass on television, the world has literally come to an end. That should really make us wonder what's going on with us. I mean, death, destruction, mayhem, blowing people away with guns is perfectly acceptable viewing material for young children. But a couple fart jokes and maybe a part of a naked body or something like that, and that's absolutely horrible. But I don't think, I knew it was the whole thing was bullshit to begin with. I knew that it had absolutely nothing to do with whether children should see something or not. It was, as a matter of fact, the woman wanted everyone that came through to have to watch Fox News, because that was her reality tunnel, and she wanted to inflict it on everyone else that came through. Another thing that kind of struck me with this, which is kind of a weird offshoot, they said that, many times they get servicemen and soldiers that come through, and they let them watch whatever they want to on television. Well, I could see how, if I'd done a couple tours of duty, I wouldn't want to watch death and destruction in Iraq and Afghanistan. I can understand that, but the way that she presented the point, it was as if, okay, there are troops, so they're heroes, and they are entitled to some sort of rights that normal people, especially people such as myself, are disabled and just kind of blend into the background, disposable people, are not entitled to. And I was thinking, how does she know that I'm not a vet? How does she know I wasn't, in Desert Storm or something like that? How does she know that, granted I was gimped up and in a wheelchair at the time, which, lots of vets end up in wheelchairs. But, of course, I would be a, useless human being in the eyes of a lot of conservatives. But how does she know, when I was 25, I didn't by chance save 15 orphans from a burning orphanage? How does she know that I'm not a hero? How does she know that the guy sitting next to me is not a hero? How does she know that my wife wasn't a hero? You know, this idea that being a soldier automatically makes you a hero, that gives you certain rights that other people shouldn't have, is pretty moronic, in my opinion. I mean, it kind of like harkens back to the whole Starship Troopers thing of service ensures citizenship. It's like, oh, well, if you've been in the service, then you have full rights. But if you haven't, well, you don't count for shit. That's kind of the feeling I got from that. And, you know, I see that a lot. I think there's a lot of stuff pushed with the support the troops and all that. And, you know, I do support anybody that's willing to put their life on the line for something that they believe is right. But, you know, I think we should support our citizens too. Just because somebody has not joined the military doesn't mean that there should be a second-class citizen. But anyway, I just thought I'd share that. It's kind of a rambly video, but that shit happened. And it continues to happen, especially, you know, where I'm at. From what I hear from people in other parts of the country, it's the same thing there too. Nowadays, I just read and try to block out whatever's going on around me. I don't care much for any of that, any mainstream news, because it's all going the same way. Anyway, thank you for watching.